Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to today's post-cabinet press conference. I have the Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development with me here today. She is going to make one short announcement, after which we'll be willing to take your questions. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, colleague, members of the media. Good afternoon. Yesterday, the Ministry of Labour hosted a workshop on contract labor, reducing the dependency. At that workshop, at a panel discussion, the General Secretary of the National Trade Union Center made a statement to wit that the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago has the legal ability to pay the workers of ArcelorMittal severance and retrenchment benefits. As a consequence of that statement, I sought legal advice on whether or not there was any accuracy in the statement made. The advice that I received informed me that the decision of the Privy Council in Singh established that severance and retrenchment benefits are not payable in the course of liquidation, as in the case of ArcelorMittal. I am also informed that ArcelorMittal has to date paid all monies ordered by the industrial court, and that is arising out of the last judgment against ArcelorMittal. They would have made all payments, plus they would have paid the fine charged by the court, and those payments would have been made sometime at the end of March, of this year. In addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, arising out of a meeting that I held as a Minister of Labour with both the President and other executive officers of the Steelworkers Union of Trinidad and Tobago and ArcelorMittal, that would have been the Monday before the liquidation. One of the undertaking was to inform both the union and myself as Minister of Labour and Small Enterprise Development of the name of the liquidator, a telephone contact of the liquidator, in addition to informing on the process that would be used by the UTC in refunding the workers under the savings plan. And I received a memo from the CEO on the 7th of April informing of the appointment of Mr. Chris Calshall as the liquidator, and also informing that they had contacted the Unit Trust Couva branch and spoken to a particular official who advised them that she would send all information regarding the income tax calculations of the workers, and that they would process the checks for all members of the savings plan. But they would do so, they would need at least a week. So that based on the information I would have received, it meant therefore that the former employees of ArcelorMittal ought to be receiving monies from the savings plan either by the end of this week or early next week, as well as some other statements that that he had made, other information concerning a particular employee who were not paid any termination payment, and payment consistent with the award of the court. And that's the simple clarification I wish to make, given the statement that was made by the General Secretary of NATUC at yesterday's workshop.
Thank you, Minister, and we are now available to take any questions that you may have on a statement or otherwise.
Minister, there was no mention made about the pension plan. Was there any consideration about the pension plan that ArcelorMittal would have engaged in insofar as the workers to get that benefit?
The discussion that was held the day before the liquidation focused around how the trustees of the pension plan, how are they going to manage the entire process, as well as the actuary. What we were informed on, because it's a very large capital that is involved, it is unlikely that one insurance company can carry that load, and therefore they may have to look at a consortium of insurance companies to address the issue of the pension plan.
Now that we have a timeline for the disbursement of the severance benefits and plus,
I don't understand.
You indicated that the former employees of ArcelorMittal would be receiving their benefits by severance and other benefits by this week.
I said that?
Or next week, early next week.
Please, let me repeat. Yes. I never said anything like that.
I am sorry then for ascribing that to you.
Please, let me repeat what I said. The reference to payment has to do with the savings plan. The savings plan that was is operated because it's still alive. I don't think the workers would have received the payments. That the Unit Trust Corporation, which manages the savings plan, this is information coming from Mr. Robert Belize to myself via an email informing that such payments to the workers would take place either by the end of this week or early next week. That is a refund of their savings under the savings plan. Absolutely. What I clarified was the statement made by Mr. Michael Annisette yesterday at a workshop hosted by the ministry, to wit, that the Companies Act makes provision for the government to pay the workers of ArcelorMittal retrenchment and severance benefits. And it is based on that statement that I immediately sought legal advice. And legal advice indicate that the Privy Council judgment Singh ruled that once a company files for liquidation, retrenchment and severance benefits have been removed.
I was just trying to establish as well what timeline possibly for this consortium of insurance companies and so on to be, organized. So that
I cannot say. What we were informed is that it may take a couple months. Okay. And that's the information given by the actuary from Bacon, Woodruff and D'Souza.
Hi, Minister. Kijan Haynes, TV6. Just for some clarification, under which law was Mr. Annisette saying that the government has the ability to pay workers who have been retrenched?
Under the Companies Act.
And given the state of the economy, let's assume that the company was not in liquidation. Would the government have taken up this offer to pay those monies? Especially seeing that several other companies may close now and they may also be looking to the government. Is this the precedent that we might start seeing being set now?
Well, if it was a question of retrenchment and severance benefits, this situation would not arise at all.
And just as for either one, the police, fire, and prisons officers came together yesterday and they were upset over the payment of half in cash, they're back pay in cash, and the other half in bonds. And they also, it seemed like they were threatening a little level of unrest and protest action, even though they technically can't. Is there anything that the government or that cabinet spoke about today which would be able to alleviate their fears going forward?
Well, I think the Minister of Finance, there is an undertaking to meet with those three unions, and when the Minister of Finance returns, he will certainly address that issue. But I just want to make the point that payment in bonds is not something new within the public service context.
So why do you think there is this uproar over being paid in bonds?
Well, I can't say. I'm not even aware of that report. I got home last night. I had no time to view television, and I haven't even had time to read the newspapers today. So I am going based on what the information you are sharing with me now.
Just to follow up to the last question, Mr. Minister, could it not be because of a lack of consultation? It's one of the things that they complained about heading into the mid-year budget review, that unions were not consulted about some of the measures that would have been outlined in that budget.
And I did say in the Senate on Tuesday night, I did indicate that there wasn't the breadth of time to engage in the kind of consultation that is required, where you sit, you discuss, and the unions go back and they discuss and consult with their own membership and then come back to the table. Time did not permit that, and we are really sorry about such a situation developing, but I'm quite sure once the Minister of Finance comes back and that meeting is held with the three unions in national security, I am quite sure there would be a meeting of the minds, because bonds, has been in the past an acceptable form of payment within the public service.
Hi. Do you have a
Hi.
timeline for implementation, a timeline for the introduction of legislation to amend the Severance and Benefits Act and all those other various acts that regulate this issue?
Actually, we have already set a date to begin that dialogue, and it is the 18th of May, where, of course, we will be collaborating with the Law Association on this issue, the Attorney General. I have discussed it with the Attorney General, who has kindly agreed to be part of that dialogue, as well as labor and employers. That means the three labor bodies, the Joint Trade Union Movement, the National Trade Union Center, the Federation of Independent Trade Unions and NGOs, as well as the private sector. You have the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce, you have AmCham, you have Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association, you have the Energy Chamber. We will be bringing all the stakeholders together to begin that dialogue, addressing the Retrenchment and Severance Benefits Act, the Companies Act, and the Bankruptcy and Insolvency Act.
After that dialogue is completed, how soon can we see legislation actually tabled in Parliament and passed?
Well, I could tell you what I would hope to see happen, which may not necessarily mesh with what emerges on the 18th of May. And that is why we have to take that kind of guidance from the Law Association, whose input is invaluable in this process.
One of the criticisms that has been levied against the government in relation to this issue is that while this consultation process is ongoing, that is not necessarily consistent with the urgency of this issue. And there have been calls, for instance, for the government to consider simply referring the matter to the tripartite committee, or for the government to move far more urgently in relation to this issue and perhaps abrogate the need for lengthy consultations. Do you think we ought to do this faster?
Well, let me say this. As I said yesterday at the workshop, there must be consultation, because the consultations in the past, many of the stakeholders were not part of those consultations, and therefore we cannot rule out consultation. But certainly we can attempt to put it on fast forward. However, there are constraints because the stakeholders involved, they have their own constituents to go back and consult and get direction in terms of the formulation of their own position on the issue. And I don't know how much faster the government can operate because a date has been set for May month to begin that dialogue, which to my mind conveys a sense of urgency that the government is acting. One has to remember that the government cannot act recklessly under circumstances. The government has to weigh all the consequences, the various views and positions, and act in the best interest of the country, not in the best interest of any one sectoral view.
For instance, what is the necessity to consult the Law Association on this issue?
Because the Law Association is an important stakeholder, and every process we are involved in, we have given the Law Association that we will partner with them.
And how do you reconcile this position with the position that was just discussed in relation to the bonds for members of the police, fire, and prison officers, where they were consulted?
Well, I don't know that I can add to what I said earlier. When the Minister of Finance comes back, he will address that issue with the three unions involved. And I'm quite sure at the end of that discourse, there will be a meeting of the minds.
The main issue behind the Privy Council ruling that you mentioned was the definition of retrenchment. And they adopted a very narrow definition, saying that it related only to redundancy. Could the government consider simply bringing a simple amendment to change the definition of retrenchment pending these ongoing consultations?
I think Mr. Bagu, you're offering free legal advice to the minister, but I think she'd be better to go with her legal advice in dealing with this situation. Any other questions?
But I just wanted to share with Mr. Bagu, I mean, the government could do almost anything, but the government will not, because it is not the government alone that is engaged in this process. There are other players whom we must respect and must take their views on board.
You mentioned a couple of times that when the Minister of Finance comes back, where is he heading off to? Is he going anywhere?
Well, he has gone on government's business.
Any further details, Mr. Cuffie?
Well, I think his travel was approved to attend the meetings of the IMF, which takes place every year, and he's part of the delegation attending it.
In Washington. Yes. He would be back by early next week. The Honourable Prime Minister.
And just a follow-up question to you, Minister. The unions raised this morning the question of retroactive legislation that would facilitate retroactive payments. Is that something that would be considered?
We would have to be guided on what is legally possible or not. I will not want to presume any position, but would await that legal guidance.
And this is for Minister Cuffie, or either one. Did the issue of the ex-carrying workers come up, even though Dr. Rowley, the Prime Minister, said that the $52 million from the EU is here? Yesterday, their attorney, Gerald Ramdean, said there's an extra $25 million that's owed to them. But Dr. Rowley says no money more. Was that raised at all in Cabinet?
I think Dr. Rowley has given the government's position on that matter, that the $52 million will be paid, and after that, we will not be entertaining any other payment.
And how will it be? How is it going to be dispersed? Has that been decided? How is it going to be divided, or etc.?
No. Those details we did not discuss.
All right, but they're also threatening to take the government to court to get this extra money. Is the government prepared to deal with that?
Yes, we'll cross that bridge when we meet it.
Question? What is the government's thinking in terms of, ArcelorMittal or the steel industry as a whole going forward?
The government is not in the steel business. ArcelorMittal was, and we all know what transpired. They have shut down their operations here, but they are operating elsewhere, where I guess the grass is greener for them.
In the context of the nurses' situation in Tobago, it is, in fact, there have been indications from the Public Services Association that the nurses need to have their monies outstanding to them.
I'm sorry, I am unaware of what is being referred to.
In terms of back pay due to the nurses in Tobago, in particular, in this instance, we have heard that in fact indicated by Mr. Duke, is government ready or moving to have this sorted out?
Well, the government has given on this. First to begin, I am unaware of what exactly that took place. I did indicate that I got home late last night, so I missed all the news. But the government has given an undertaking to settle the debt. In 2016, the Minister of Finance during the mid-year review indicated that 50% will be paid in cash and the balance to public officers would be paid by way of bonds. So that I don't know what is the counter response to that. But the debt is a debt the government has recognized and would meet.
Mr. Cuffie, this is for you. I understand that the board of GISL and CNMG met today with the Terence Farrell Committee. Can you say what that meeting was about, and do you know what came out of it?
Well, I certainly don't know what came out of it because I was in cabinet, but I think I've said on several occasions here that the future of both companies have been referred to that committee on state enterprises. The committee will have met with them. After that meeting, the committee will report back to cabinet, and the cabinet will take a decision.
And just a final question from me. Do you have any fears, either one of you, of a repeat of the total day of policing or something similar, especially given you're seeing the major protective services upset about money right now? Do you have any fear of that, and what would you say to them at this time?
I'll let the Minister of Labour respond after. But from what I'm seeing, this is a dialogue. The trade unions have made statements. The Minister of Finance has agreed to meet them on his return. It's a continuing dialogue, so I haven't seen a breakdown or any crisis that would lead me to that position.
What I would like to add is that the 50% payment of what is due is really a very powerful signal of good faith that I'm quite sure the unions would take on board, and the dialogue would map out the process to be used for the payment of the next 50% that is owed. And I can't see a situation like that leading to a breakdown where there may be action that might result in discomfort for the nation.
The $1 million compensation, how soon is that likely to be implemented? Is it that legislation has to be prepared, or is it an administrative process that has to take place?
My recollection, being part of the meeting, there's a legal process. It may not be a lengthy legal process, but I want to make the point that the former administration agreed to pay this $1 million and did absolutely nothing in terms of the necessary legal adjustments, and no attempts were made to implement this decision that they took. This government recognizes that an undertaking has been given, and with the assistance of the Minister of National Security, the necessary legal amendments would be made to implement that decision.
And one assumes it's going to be retroactive, at least to the point at which it was announced by the last government, because there was, I think there was at least one previous law enforcement person who...
And I think it's more than one. In terms of the meeting I attended, I think they indicated I think it's between 3 to 5 persons. It's not a large number, regrettably, but it's not a large number of police officers who have been killed in the line of duty in such a manner.
So it would take into...
Oh, yes. It's part of an order, a legal order that I am not too familiar with, and therefore I would like to invite members of the media to discuss further with the Minister of National Security, who would have much more information on the process to be followed in this regard.
Does it only apply to policemen or all law enforcement officers?
Well, my understanding is it is applicable to police officers.
That was the initial announcement, and it's because of all the questions you're asking, you understand why now we need to establish a policy and put the mechanisms in place so that we can answer all those questions.
You understand, of course, law enforcement is law enforcement, and once you give the police something, everybody else is going to make a similar case. It would be equally valid, I think.
What I would say to that is that we will have to deal with those issues as and when they arise. But with regards to this specific issue, the decision of the former administration was to pay to the police officers, and that is what we are keeping faith with.
There was a suggestion last September, there was $10 billion, I think, in import or foreign exchange cover, and that 5 months since, it has been drawn down to some $9 billion. Is there, and there's been a call for an explanation of what happened to the $1 billion. Is there any indication from you that you can explain that $1 billion?
I think the finance minister dealt with that extensively in the statement last Friday in the Parliament.
Just going back to the $1 million compensation, it has been suggested that it could be effected by way of a simple cabinet note.
No, there is an order that has to be amended. So it's not only the cabinet's authority that is required here.
If there are no further questions, thank you very much for your attendance here today and for your compelling questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a good afternoon.
Sweet 100.1 gives you Wednesday Love. Hello, it's me. I was wondering if after all these years you liked me. Enjoy 80s, 90s, and love songs of 2000 from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. Wednesday Love.